Four Midwest Guys presents
Welcome back to my list. This is part 2 of John Z's Academy Award predictions. So, episode 1, we covered some of the more technical awards. We're going to cover a couple more bigger awards here, as well as some more as like the last of the technical awards in part 2. So, moving on, let's start with Best Supporting Actress. All signs point to Laura Dern right now. She's got the Golden Globe, she's got the Broadcast Film Critics Award, she's got the SAG Award, she's got pretty much everything all lined up. In fact, all of the acting categories have that. Unless I'm mistaken, I think everybody that's won a Golden Globe has also won a SAG and has also won the Broadcast Film Critics Award. So odds are you're gonna get it could line up 4 for 4. But I also have a suspicion here. As strong as Laura Dern is right now in this category, she could actually, I think she might lose out to Scarlett Johansson for Jojo Rabbit. Because I have my reasons. I don't know. I mean, it's a lot of them I want to save for the rest of the episode. Because, I'm sorry, like Margot Robbie, Florence Pugh, Kathy Bates. I sadly haven't seen any of those 3 movies, but I don't see them making enough waves to where they'll sneak in and win. But, yeah. Good money's on Laura Dern. For now, I'm predicting Laura Dern, but I also want to predict Scarlett Johansson. And I'll say it right now. Fine. I'm not going to save it for the end of part 1. I think there is going to be a very, very obvious Netflix backlash. And by that, I mean there's the potential that every Netflix movie could go home empty-handed. That would mean Marriage Story. That would mean The Two Popes. And that would also mean The Irishman. And I know in my last video I called The Irishman for visual effects, but I think if we see The Irishman lose visual effects to either 1917 or Lion King, we are going to be in for a big FU to Netflix and basically streaming movies. Because there's a little bit of a backlash in Hollywood right now that they think streaming services are killing the theatrical experience. And it's one instance. There's a lot of other factors that go into it too. I think it's going to be their way of like possibly making a statement. And I think that it could be that enough for Scarlett Johansson to sneak in. I don't want to dwell on it too much. I'm going to move on to Best Production Design. It's going to come down to the 2 Art Directors Guild winners. It's either going to be the contemporary winner, Parasite, or the period winner, which was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Contemporary normally doesn't win, as in ever. So yeah, I would have to call Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. If Parasite wins here, then expect a really big showing for Parasite that night. However, I don't see it going too strong. I'll get into that a little later. But yes, for now, production design, the other nominees, Jojo Rabbit, The Irishman, and 1917. We're going to hear those names a lot throughout the rest of the technical categories. Irishman sets, I think they nominated quantity over quality because there's over 200 sets that they had to do, or locations and sets they had to do for the film. I think maybe at least half of those had to be originally constructed. Jojo Rabbit, I'd really like to see Jojo Rabbit nominated. It had a strong color palette, it created a really wonderful town, but I think just the fabricated period piece of Tarantino's, I shouldn't say fabricated, hyper-realistic period piece that Tarantino created with Once Upon a Time, I think that's what's going to win. But that house in Parasite, if you ever get to see that movie, if any of my viewers are watching this or any of my listeners are watching this, that house in Parasite is a beautiful piece of set design. Moving on to another design category in costume design. I'm going to read the nominees out first. I'm kind of winging this, I apologize. We have The Irishman, we have Joker, Jojo Rabbit, Little Women, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Well, surprisingly, Jojo Rabbit actually won the Guild Award, so that is kind of a surprise win there. I wouldn't say so much surprise. It had everything. It had 1940s uniforms. It had plain clothes from the 1940s. It had, and again, a strong color palette too. That's always something that's very helpful. So I think that's what helped the Guild win. And plus the neat thing is you can see as the character Jojo progresses in the film, his costumes go from less, rigid and, uniform to more plain clothes and ordinary and basically like a kid. But it's always the period piece. If you want to know what's going to win costumes, think of what's got the prettiest period dress. And with that said, I think Little Women's going to take it. It's got everything. It's got what the category loves. It's got multiple characters. It's got a very, prominent time period that people love to see that kind of dresses made for. And people in the industry know that you don't just go to a rack and buy them anywhere. They actually will have to make them. They'll have to fit them to the actresses. And they'll have to work in context with the rest of the film. So, yeah, Little Women's going to win here. Jojo Rabbit's got an outside chance, or even Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I don't see Joker or Irishman winning. So, yeah, I'm going to say the safe bet right now is Little Women. Moving on to sound mixing. Well, I don't even know if I should drag this out as much as I should, but it's going to be 1917. War film, it's going to win. Think of the past winners. Saving Private Ryan, Dunkirk, Black Hawk Down. It's just, war films always seem to sneak in and take the Best Sound Award. Unless you're a musical. Or hell, even Hacksaw Ridge took sound mixing over La La Land in 2016. First win for Kevin O'Connell, too. Breaking his streak. So, yeah. And since we don't have a musical here, I'm going to say 1917. Ford v. Ferrari won the Cinema Audio Society Award, but that's only because 1917 wasn't nominated either. We had so yeah, it's going to be 1917. Ford v. Ferrari, possible chance. Don't see it upseating it because 1917, we're going to see a small sweep from that film, and it's going to take sound mixing here. But I will touch on some other interesting notes here. For Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, both Michael Minkler and his son, Christian Minkler, are nominated. If I'm not mistaken, this is Christian Minkler's first Oscar nomination, making him the third generation of Minklers that have been nominated in a category. So you've had, I think, Bob Minkler was the first, then his nephew was Michael Minkler, and then Michael's son, Christian, is now nominated for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, so that makes 3 generations of a family nominated in the same category. I think that's a cool thing. And Ad Astra sneaking into sound mixing, I wondered, what the hell? I thought it was going to get completely shafted, but then I realized who was nominated. Gary Rydstrom and Tom Johnson are 2 living legends of sound design, and I am so glad to see them back in the game. I haven't heard a great Gary Rydstrom mixed movie in a long time, and if you're wondering why that's such a big thing, I'm just going to say Terminator 2, Jurassic Park, Titanic, Saving Private Ryan, just the list goes on. Early Pixar films, Gary Rydstrom. You know, the man is an icon. And Tom Johnson normally works with him too, so yeah, that's got me really excited. So when I get more time and I get a chance to actually say, hey, maybe I can sit and rent this movie, I'm going to check out Ad Astra. I'm going to make sure I do it in my surround sound too. So, moving on, sound effects. Pretty much the same run here. We don't have anything that's, we don't have like a lot of record breakers here. So again, it's going to come down to 1917 versus Ford v Ferrari. 1917 is going to take it again. We're going to have both sound categories there. And yeah, I don't have much to say from that. Which is funny, because my next category is Best Cinematography. If you put money on anything other than 1917 for cinematography, or if you pick anything else other than 1917 for cinematography, you are throwing your prediction away. I'm saying that right now. Everyone that is aware of what cinematography is, if they've seen this movie, if they know of this movie, you cannot vote for anything else. You honestly can't. I mean, I know that, again, I've said it for Birdman, that I thought that was a little, pretentious and ostentatious to just be like, oh, it's like, oh, it's one fluid take, and it takes place over the course of like a week or so, and it didn't work for me. I didn't think it worked. But with 1917, it was just the right story and was done in just the right manner, that it didn't call too much attention to itself and actually put the audience like in the feeling of the story. So this is a one-take movie done right. And the reason I'm going so far into this, because I don't even feel like I need to cover the other nominees of, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Lighthouse, Irishman, and The Joker. They did fine jobs, but I'm sorry, 1917, the camera work in that, and just what they were able to accomplish, it's the perfect harmony of a film production, and it's going to win. And basically, don't predict anything else. Moving on to Best Film Editing. So, we don't have 1917 here. So, our other nominees are Ford v Ferrari, The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, and Parasite. Irishman, not going to win. A lot of people complained about the pacing, about the length, 3.5 hours. It's not going to win. Joker, fine job, did what it needed to. Couple edit tricks here and there, but I don't see it winning here unless support is absolutely feverish, which it hasn't been lately, so I don't see that. Jojo Rabbit could win, possibly. There's a, it won the comedic editing. The American Cinema Editors, they divide between comedic and dramatic. Jojo Rabbit won the comedic one. So, possibly, but I won't see it here. So I think our two contenders are Ford v Ferrari and Parasite. Now, since Bullitt in 1968, if you were going to do any kind of car chase or any kind of car racing in a film, you had to have it done right. And unless... So, again, I still haven't seen Ford v Ferrari, but I imagine that, I imagine that the editing had to have been, precise. Had to have been absolutely perfect in order for it to have achieved its purpose. It could win here, which would be a little odd that the only award that Ford v Ferrari would win would go to film editing, just because that normally doesn't happen. So with that said, I'm actually predicting Parasite for film editing. Now, the reason for that is there's a lot of support for Parasite lately. And even though Ford v Ferrari, a car racing film, is usually going to be very highly regarded in its own, in its own medium, Like, you'd think the other editors would jump on board. You'd think the American cinema editors would have awarded that film. But instead, they went with Parasite. So I think the support for Parasite is growing, and I think the Guild win for Parasite is what's going to help put it over the edge. So Parasite's going to win for film editing. All right, moving on to supporting actor. It's Brad Pitt's year. This is his third nomination, and it will be his first win, and he deserves it. I'm sorry. I loved him since I saw him in Seven. I know he's been acting before that. I know he was in... I didn't see California until later, but Seven was the first time I stood up and went, yeah, I buy all the hits. You know, I buy all the, you know, the buzz around him, because before that I thought of him as just like a pretty boy in Legends of the Fall and Interview with the Vampire. But no, 12 months, and then later on that year in 7, he did 12 Monkeys, and that was his first nomination, and I wanted him to win. I really did. He got nominated again for Curious Case of Benjamin Button, and he turns in some consistently good performances, you know. And this is the first. I think this is the first time in a long time that he's been allowed to have, you know, this good of a role. And when he got it, like, people were thinking he was the lead of this film. Like, you know, DiCaprio is the lead. I mean, that's basically in the story. DiCaprio's the lead, and Brad Pitt is his stuntman or his double or his backup. He's the guy that's always there for him. He is the supporting actor. And by the very definition of just the role, his performing, if DiCaprio's performance is great, it's because Pitt was there for him too. And that's not to discredit anything DiCaprio did in the film. We'll get to that later. And not to discredit, but he was very good. But yeah, the other actors, Joe Pesci and Al Pacino for The Irishman, they'll cancel each other out. Anthony Hopkins for The Two Popes, I don't think is running very strong right now. And sadly, I don't think Tom Hanks is for The Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. I think had the movie caught on more, it would have made bigger waves. But as it stands, Brad Pitt's your front runner right now. So, that concludes part 2 of my Oscar predictions this year. And stay tuned for the Big 5.